Alright, this kind of fell over. What is up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, narrator of The Gallant by Janie Wirtz, an avid fantasy book fan and historical fiction fan. And today I'm going to talk about two trilogies I read recently, both of them historical fiction. One I own physically, and that is the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary Mantel, and the other is the Essex Dogs trilogy by Dan Jones. I'm going to be reviewing each of them. I finished them both very recently, and first I'm going to kick it off with the Wolf Hall trilogy. It is the absence of facts that frightens people, the gap you open into which they pour their fears, fantasies, desires. Some of these things are true, and some of them lies, but they are all good stories. It is all very well planning what you will do in 6 months, what you will do in a year, but it's no good at all if you don't have a plan for tomorrow. Why are we so attached to the severities of the past? Why are we so proud of having endured our fathers and our mothers, the fireless days and the meatless days, the cold winters and the sharp tongues? It's not as if we had a choice. He thinks, I remembered you, Thomas More, but you didn't remember me. You never even saw me coming. Alright, so the Wolf Hall trilogy follows the exploits of Thomas Cromwell, amazing audiobooks narrated by Ben Miles. Hilary Mantel is at the top of her game. Actually, both of these trilogies are narrated by Ben Miles, funnily enough. So we follow the exploits of Thomas Cromwell in the court of King Henry VIII. In the very onset of Wolf Hall, get up boy, we have young Thomas Cromwell as his father is telling him to get up after, putting the haymaker on him. And we get this journey of Cromwell becoming an indispensable part of King Henry VIII's court, weathering the fall of Cardinal Wolsey. The interesting thing about this series is if you're at all knowledgeable about the proceedings of Henry VIII's court, most of these plot points, you'll know exactly what's coming. Anne Boleyn, you know what's coming. And it's a very talented writer that is able to take these events and you know what plot points are coming. You know what's about to transpire. And, it's like a train wreck. You can't look away, but you also... you know it's going to end in tragedy. And the way she writes Cromwell is brilliant. Like, this is one of my favorite characters of the entire year, and probably my favorite character of the entire year as far as my reading journey has gone. Cromwell is brilliant. He's a lot like Tyrion Lannister. I've mentioned in my I reviewed book 1 on my channel. He reminds me a lot of Tyrion Lannister from George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. He's witty. He's just got a sharp tongue, and every single noble that tries to belittle him because of the station of his birth, he's able to give them a rejoinder that just completely silences the room. He's just so fun and magnetic and charismatic, and he just rules every room he's in. The second he walks onto the scene, he commands the scene. I mean, he is a more powerful stage presence within these books than the king. I mean, granted, Henry VIII is a chud, as the kids would say. He is a absolute incel chud, but the way that Cromwell makes himself indispensable to Henry, and honestly, Henry VIII feels like a child a lot of the time in these novels, and it is up to Cromwell to sort of see the needs of this king and to speak in terms that Henry can understand without being condescending, without being false. And you see him walk that tightrope constantly as he tries to advise Henry while not overstepping his bounds, while trying to keep the nobility in check, while also not trying to seem too power hungry, like he wants a part of the throne. There are rumors in here that he wants to marry Henry's daughter to succeed Henry on the throne. That does him a disservice. And it's so much fun watching Thomas Cromwell, Rafe Sadler, and the other members of his crew sort of finagle their way into King Henry's court and sink their teeth into that court and stay there and take up space. And of these two trilogies, I will say I did prefer the Wolf Hall trilogy overall. I gave book 1, Wolf Hall, a 5 out of 5. I gave book 2, Bring Up the Bodies, my least favorite in the trilogy. Still a very strong book. 4 out of 5 stars. If I'm going off Goodreads, though, closer for me, it's more like a 4.25, 4.3 area. And then Mirror in the Light is without a doubt a 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5, 10 out of 5. This is one of the best concluding novels to a trilogy that I've ever read. You get all the way up to Cromwell's death, how it happened in real life, and you get his account of his life up into that point. And, you really walk a mile in Cromwell's shoes. And, it's just such a powerful story. I will be thinking back to this fictionalized accounting of Cromwell's life for many, many, many years. And it will go down as one of my favorite historical fiction trilogies of all time. Not even that, just one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I think The Mirror in the Light really solidified this as a series that should not be skimmed, skipped, or passed over. It is excellent, and Hilary Mantel is a master of her craft. There's a reason she won the Booker Prize 2 years in a row for book 1 and book 2, and in my opinion, book 3 is better than both of them. Absolutely loved the Wolf Hall trilogy. So I'm going to get into spoilers about this trilogy before I go on to Essex Dogs. I mean, there's not really a lot you can talk about in terms of spoilers because these are all based on real events. But as you know, Cromwell is killed. I thought it was interesting in this series the way it tackles the accusations leveled against Anne Boleyn. And, Mirror in the Light really makes that come full circle with the accusations leveled at Cromwell. It's hard to really sit here and be like, how could Cromwell have avoided this? Because Henry is an impetuous, temperamental child. And his pride would not allow for a man like Cromwell to know what's better for his reign than he does. And that's the truth of it. I did feel a lot of the time Henry, despite being a man-child and not a great ruler, he did remind me of another great ruler within literature, William of the Aventine House from Sun Eater. And the way that William, he's around so many nobility, and like Hadrian is not high amongst the courts. I mean, he is a cousin to the imperial line, but there's a kinship between them because William is constantly around all these nobility that constantly pander to him. When you take someone like Henry VIII, all these nobles that view themselves as so far above the common man, well, the king is so far above them that it really doesn't matter to him if he's speaking to a noble or if he's speaking to a commoner. He really wants someone that can know what he desires and is able to achieve that for him. And that is why Cromwell rose to be Thomas Cromwell. So love this trilogy. Now, I don't have a physical copy, but the next series I'm talking about is Essex Dogs by Dan Jones.
All Loveday knew for certain was that the captain had left them, and that the grief for a friend who had walked away was 10 times worse than for a friend who had been killed.
So I gave book 1, Essex Dogs, a 5 out of 5. I gave book 2, Wolves of Winter, a 5 out of 5. And I gave book 3, Lionhearts, a 4 out of 5. So in this series, we follow the exploits of Loveday Fitztalbot, who is a commoner soldier during the reign of King Edward the Black, as he is trying to conquer France, and he's, the 100-Year War. And book 3 even gets into the Black Death some. I am not super knowledgeable on this era of history at all, really, but you don't really need to be. Whereas this is very adherent to a lot of historical events, Essex Dogs, you are very much a boots on the ground level approach. There are knights, there are earls and dukes and kings, and there's a very comedic scene where Edward's wife is speaking. But for the most part, you're following these boots on the ground, soldier level people. It's, Saving Private Ryan medieval. And it's so good. The bonds of brotherhood that these characters have. So many of them feel so real. You have Loveday Fitztalbot. You have the somewhat selfish Romford, you have Thorpe and Millstone, you have Scotsman, you have Father, the crazy priest, and you follow them as they just try to keep each other alive, and they're loyal to each other first and to the King's Silver second. And I love that about the Essex Dogs. They are such a fun crew. The structure of this trilogy is really interesting because book 1 and book 2 kind of feel like a duology, whereas book 3 feels like an epilogue a novel-sized epilogue, kind of in a similar vein to Philip Chase's Edan trilogy. The Return to Edan kind of feels like an epilogue book after the first two books felt like a duology, though this is smaller in scale than something like that. I think if you love war stories, if you love bands and bonds of brotherhood, then you should check out Essex Dogs by Dan Jones. I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So I thought it was really interesting in this third novel, following Loveday as he, builds up this alehouse and he tries to settle down, and then, shenanigans ensue. I thought the character of Rigsby, Thorpe's nephew, was really, really fun. I thought it was great the way they brought Romford back into the story, same with the Scotsman. Oh man, such an explosive ending to the first and second book that this more melancholic resolution at the end of the third book was really heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, but it also felt like the only way this story could have ended. I mean, Loveday probably would have always been roped back into another adventure by his dogs. I thought that this resolution for his arc was the only resolution we could get. And while it was very heartbreaking and melancholic, Loveday was always going to live and die by the sword because that's who he is. He tried to go against his nature by building this alehouse, but it is in his nature to fight and die by the sword. And his journey was beautiful. I loved it. It had me a little teary-eyed at the end because I did love his character quite a bit, but I had a feeling that things could only end this way. And, it ended in a way to where those he cared about will be provided for. And, his sacrifice will not be for naught. I thought it was a brilliant trilogy. I do hope Dan Jones continues to write more historical fiction. I think he really has a talent for it. I will continue to read his history books. I've read Henry V. I want to read The Plantagenets and The War of the Roses and read many, many, many more Dan Jones's books. But I really hope he does more historical fiction. And guys, so let me know down, if you're still around, let me know down in the comment sections below. What are some really good historical fiction series that I should be reading? I've thought about reading Elodie Harper's The Wolf's Den. That one sounds really, really fun. And there's a few other historical fiction series that are kind of on the purview. But let me know down in the comment section below if you've read either of these series and what you thought. And as always, stay safe, guys. Peace.